Hello, friends, and welcome to a Friday edition of Your Daily Detroit. It is Friday, March 4th, 2022. We are on the march to 1,000 episodes of the podcast. And from east of Woodward, I'm Jer Stays.
And from west of Woodward, I'm Devon O'Reilly.
It is good to talk to you, Devon. Before we get started, thanks to Leslie for upping their pledge at patreon.com/dailydetroit. It is much appreciated. So this round of drinks is in your honor, Leslie. Devon, what you got?
Well, Leslie, thank you so much for this because I've got something, Jer. I have been literally waiting a year to get to drink again. You're familiar, I hope our listeners are familiar with Soft Parade, right? The very famous Shorts Brewing offering.
Yeah, the original, yeah.
It's a nice like fruit ale. It's got a nice strong, it's a beautiful spring summer beer. It's a high ABV. It's like a 7.5%. So like you drink this nice light fruity beer and you think, oh, this is great. I could drink a ton of these, but it's strong. So they went and did Shorts, God love them. They went and created a double Soft Parade.
Oh, wow. Now all of a sudden, all I can think of is those Double Mint commercials.
Well, the can and the logo does have the lady relaxing in her recliner, two of them on the double Soft Parade. So they did kind of go with the Double Mint effect here. So sitting here with a can of double Soft Parade that only comes out in March. So this was something where I got like the last bit of it last year, and I didn't realize that double Soft Parade was a thing. Jer, I loved it. It is amazing. It's better than regular Soft Parade. They double the strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, and blackberries that they brew it with. So it's basically double the fruit that creates double Soft Parade. It's such an easy drinking beer. It's not any sweeter than the regular one. It's a perfect spring beer. So I'm going to plug that, but I also kind of probably regretting that I did because it's very limited. So if you find some double Soft Parade out there in your travels, you buy it because this will be gone in a few weeks.
I'm going to have to try it because I am told that I need to try more beers in my world. So I'm going to give it a shot.
You'd like this. I really think you'd like it, Jer.
Okay. You know, I hear that you also have a little other bit of beer news in your hat or tucked away in your pocket.
Yeah, it's some good news, and it's correcting a report that I guess I had a little bit earlier when I thought that I had heard the demise of Jolly Pumpkin Dearborn. I thought it was curtains for them for good, and I found out that is not the case. Obviously, they've been struggling with the lack of density in the office spaces, but they're coming back. So Jolly Pumpkin Dearborn will return in April or May, right around when the Ford office workers are coming back. So that's also the time when Ford is looking to bring their office workers back in Dearborn. So they'll coincide, and I'm excited for it.
All right, let's get into the stories. This is a topic that some listeners have brought up. We may as well wrestle with it. And, it's in the news as well that costs are rising in Metro Detroit. And it's not just about gas, which is expected to cross $5 a gallon. I mean, that's pretty much a done deal. You may as well just go ahead and schedule for that, considering everything that's happening in the world right now. But new data from Redfin shows that rental costs are up 10% in our region. The average apartment rent is now $1,600 a month, or nearly $1,600 a month. We are still on the bottom of the cost scale nationally, but definitely not the cheapest. Places like Indianapolis, Columbus, and Cleveland are less expensive. Now, according to a Crain's Detroit article, in the suburbs, you're seeing rises as much as 20% a year. Now, on top of these rent issues, water rates from the Great Lakes Water Authority are up 3.7%. That's in part to cover a bill from Highland Park that's contested. Highland Park's been dealing with a lot of financial issues lately. I will say one cost that is down, marijuana. Bridge Detroit reports that legal marijuana prices have cratered. They say there's record supply. There's 55 times more pot on the market. People are purchasing it at a higher rate, but nowhere near how much more is available. On the other side, that's not so great for producers. To give you an idea, the average price for an ounce of marijuana fell 70% to about $150 in January. That's down from more than $500 in December of 2019. Devon, there's just so many things out there, whether it's these rental issues, the feedback I've gotten around taxes, and when people are buying a new place and it pops up, that's causing some people to have some regrets around housing. I mean, there's just a lot of feelings out there right now. And Devon, I know that you recently just bought a place yourself, your family.
Yeah, Jer. I can put my own kind of personal spin on this because I was renting about a year ago at this time, and then I bought a house about a year ago at this time. So I saw that kind of rental increase living downtown for years. There wasn't a year that went by that my rent didn't go up by at least 8-10%. So you saw this slow creep, and it obviously continues. And then, there's always this debate, buy or rent. And on its face, you look at the average cost of a house and you say, oh, well, the mortgage will be less than my rent. Easy deal. No problem. This makes total sense. But I think, a lot of people, and I've bought 2 homes now, a lot of people don't realize kind of the additional costs that go in with purchasing a home. And you think about things like your taxes that you have to add in, and the taxes pop when you buy the house. Like you mentioned, Jared, there's a jump. So it's not just what you paid last year or what the home paid last year. It goes up when you sell the house or when you buy a new house. So you have that bump. You have, higher utility bills. You have down payment costs and closing costs. And it's a more expensive endeavor than people realize. Now, I don't have any regrets. I think, we were able to buy at a good time right before the market kind of really peaked, especially kind of in our little area. So, I think that we were in a good place, my wife and I, and I'm definitely happy with our decision to buy a house. And if we went back to our renting in downtown, it sounds like it would be more expensive than ever.
We're dealing with so many issues with how much money is coming in. And yeah, people are making more, but I also hear from listeners, there's a lot of people who aren't making more, that haven't seen cost of living increases in quite a while. And that's got to be really frustrating.
For sure. I mean, I don't, I speak just from my circle of friends and what I know personally, and not everyone's just getting these cost of living increases. Like I personally have never experienced that. I can say that, in all my jobs, I have not experienced a cost of living pay bump at all. And I know some companies do that. So for sure, I think you're right in the sense that if you've been with a company for a while, maybe in new hires, new jobs, maybe companies are adjusting and saying, oh, we got to throw a few extra thousand onto that position because of cost of living. But if you're someone who's already been with a company for a few years, you should consider yourself lucky if your company is coming to you and saying, hey, you know what? We realized things have gone up and there's some inflation. So to help combat that, we're going to give you a few extra $1,000 a year. I have not heard that. And if there's companies doing that, more power to them, and we should call them out.
Yeah, if you're a company like that and you're hiring, dailydetroit@gmail.com so we can tell people about it, right? But let's get to this greater question around, let's break these down individually. Let's talk about housing really quick. There is this constant back and forth around, should we build new things? What should neighborhoods look like? At this point, with the huge deficit in the amount of homes that we have available, the market is very constrained. I mean, there is plenty of room in Metro Detroit. Like, we are not like other areas that are absolutely geographically penned in. And we also haven't built very tall. There aren't very many places that go over 2 stories anywhere in this region. So we have plenty of space up and wide to be able to do more. And if you're serious about affordable housing, I know that this is a controversial take with some, but I truly believe that if you're serious about affordable housing, you want to encourage supply, not, supply on the top, supply in the middle, supply for, affordable, to alleviate some of this market pressure, because we have been underbuilding for years. We had this problem even before the pandemic. We just didn't see it as bad.
You're absolutely right, Jared. And I think that's something really important to think about, especially like you said, for people who are advocating for affordable housing or people looking for that. It can't just be a vacuum of building more affordable housing. One of the levers that you can pull is you can create more housing, period, and that increase in the supply will then invariably lower the cost of some of the places. Like with anything, Jared, this is, we're going back to like basic economics here. If there's a top of the market, there's got to be a bottom of the market. And if you're going to build out the bottom of the market, you also need to build out the top of the market to create that balance. And so I hope people aren't as snarky about building, $500,000 apartments or apartments that are going to cost $15,000, $18,000, $2,000 a month. We need more of those so that there can be a lower half of the market where you can get rents in the $1,000, $1,200 range or lower than that. So you kind of need to build up the market even at the high end to be able to have some of this affordability at the lower end.
I also would like to see us kind of investigate alternative ways of housing. Like, we should think about, I've been seeing these houses They're starting to do 3D printing in some places. Or, there's this thing called Boxable out of Las Vegas where it can actually just like deploy, and it's like a full few hundred square foot house that you can just do, or an accessible dwelling unit. I know they're looking at that in Detroit and Ann Arbor, where if you've got a big secondary yard, maybe some place to put your mother-in-law. You got to look at all, but I mean, it's funny, but it's true, right? Like a lot of people are in this situation. More people are living with parents and multiple generations in their families in Metro Detroit than in a long time. And in fact, I think Metro Detroit is one of the top regions in the nation for those multi-generational families.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can just anecdotally, I'll say, culturally growing up in Dearborn, one of the things that struck me when I was a kid is you have a lot of obviously multi-generational families in the Middle Eastern community. And I give them credit. They know how to maximize space. When I would go over these friends' houses, their basements were built out. They had another kitchen, a full kitchen in their basements, another full bathroom, a place for Sito, which is grandma. They had a place for her. They would build out their garages into living spaces and be able to hang out in the garage. So I learned at an early age going over my Middle Eastern friends' houses. They really knew how to maximize space in there. So we need to take a little bit of that too. So that's a good idea.
Someone near and dear to me started telling me about the basement stove and the basement kitchen. At first, I thought they were crazy. But now I'm starting to realize the practicality of it.
No, it totally makes sense.
If you have a basement kitchen, dailydetroit@gmail.com.
So Jared, this may not be for everybody, especially if you drive for a living or if you have a long or high mileage commute to work, let's say. But you mentioned the gas prices thing, and part of me feels like it's more psychological than real, to be honest. And I've got a car now. I didn't living in the city for a long time, but I've got a car now, and I drive and commute downtown and back and forth. And I have to say, I really don't notice the gas stuff with my own car. And it's like it was $40 to fill up a couple of months ago, and now it's $45. I'm not that price sensitive, at least when it comes to gas. I mean, the difference is like a cheap cup of coffee. That just doesn't register to me, Jared. I don't feel that, and I think that it's one of those things where if you're being constantly bombarded with gas is surging, gas prices are up, gas is so expensive, it's like inherently when you go to the gas station, you're going to feel that. And you're like telling yourself, oh my God, gas is so high. But I don't know. I haven't felt that difference.
When you're driving for a living, it's a completely different story. But the gas price is the one number we can all drive by and see every day. And it definitely is not the economy, just like the stock market is not the economy, right? Like it's not there is no one number that tells how everyone's doing. And especially in today's economy, I don't think there's one number that tells you how everybody's doing, because I think there are multiple places where, in some industries, people are doing well. In other industries, they are not. And so, yeah, I get it. And it's funny. I have an old reporting friend who would always groan whenever we talked about gas prices, because in reality, it doesn't necessarily line up with what's going on. But it's something that everybody talks about. And so it makes it's the thumbnail, whether or not it's 100% accurate or not.
Yeah, you make a good point, Jared. It is one of the things that you constantly see because you're always driving by gas prices. And it's something I've thought about this for a while. I'm not this type of person, but you always see those people who will literally drive 5 or plus miles to a gas station to save that's 3 cents a gallon cheaper. And in my head, I'm doing the math. I'm like, that's barely $1. Like, it's like overall, I don't know. I think sometimes people get obsessed with like saving like a few cents per gallon when in the grand scheme of things, it's like $1 or $2. And is it really worth the extra drive, the extra inconvenience? I don't know. I'm not one of those people.
There is an update with a millage proposal for the Historical Museum and the Charles Wright Museum of African American History. It looks like that the possibility of a millage is going to go down to one county, and that's Wayne. It's unclear how much possible funding that would cut. This happened after resistance from Oakland County state lawmakers, especially one from Holly. This makes this a really big maybe at this point. I mean, who knows what's going to happen with Wayne County? We do not have polling around this. But it is something to me that is kind of a blow to the idea of regionalism, if this can't even make it to the ballot in Oakland County for these two museums.
I think we have a theme for our podcast today, and that's wallets are tightening, and we just talked about that for a while. And this is also a byproduct of that. I would not be wanting to try and pass a millage in a year like this. It's just people are really apprehensive about spending any extra money coming out of their pockets, whether that be through taxes, whether that be through just coming straight out of their cards or their credit cards or wallets. This is going to be a tough sell. And I don't know, Jared, it's looking a little bleak because like you said, now we're relying solely on Wayne County for this. And I don't know where. I mean, we support the DIA, and I think most people can rally around that. But sadly, I don't know if the Detroit Historical Museum or the Charles Wright Museum, which are two fantastic places, are going to be able to drum up the support needed to get this millage.
I also wonder if we need some sort of other boundary in this. Now, call me crazy, but Holly is a little bit different than Royal Oak, which is a little bit different than Ferndale. And if anything, I think I've learned in the last few years is that like Oakland County has very different feelings and situations depending basically on what line of 696 you are. I even know that from our listeners, the bulk of which are in cities that touch 696 or south. I mean, we love all of you who live north of there, but that is the bulk of where our folks are at. And I think you've got two different mindsets. And I wonder if there would be some way to kind of recut things. Because, I mean, Oakland County is gigantic.
Yeah, Oakland County is no longer the monolith that it was in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, culturally, politically, economically.
Hey, Eric Tritko, how are you, sir?
Doing well. How about yourself?
The magic of technology. I know we're supposed to have a conversation in a bit, but you're early, so just hop on into the show with us. What you got drinking?
Wild Turkey Rare Breed 101.
Nice. That's exactly what you want on a nice Friday afternoon.
It is. I was going to go with something with like sort of the pre-made old fashioned from Knob Creek, and I decided nope. I just needed it straight from the bottle. So,
well, what is your Wild Turkey take on what we're talking about? Because we're talking about your neck of the woods. You live in the Royal Oak area,
especially where I am, Royal Oak, Birmingham, Ferndale, right on the Woodward corridor here. It's an incredibly diverse area. So there's a lot of different areas. And as you say, monolithic no more. It's as diverse as anywhere else.
Do you think it might make sense to kind of have some regional areas that are, kind of maybe governed or taxed a little bit differently depending on where they're at and what they need? Because like the needs of a Ferndale or Royal Oak are a lot different than the needs of, say, Holly or one of the townships out there. They're just completely different places. And having friends in both places, like they're just different with folks who have very different lifestyles.
But you could almost say the same thing about Wayne County in the sense that you have the needs of Detroit and the immediate surrounding areas, but then you get to places like Belleville and some of the areas downriver, which are more rural and very different than what you would experience in the city. And we'll just leave it there. But let's say lots of flags flying from trucks. Kind of the same thing, but just in a different way. So, yes, you could cluster it up into different areas, but it may defeat the point of trying to keep people together as a community rather than divide them up into little areas. The more you bring people together as a community, I think the better overall we are.
All right, guys, do you remember the deer on Belle Isle?
I do.
I do not.
You do not, Devon. Okay.
I do not, no. Yeah, I remember the deer in my neighborhood in Dearborn. We used to have a lot of deer and still do, but I'd never witnessed any deer on Belle Isle.
I have deer in my neighborhood in the North End as well. But Belle Isle, since the 1930s, has had a herd, if you will, of European fallow deer. I have a lot of memories of these deer, in fact, as a child and as a young adult. But according to Amy Elliott Bragg over at Cranes, apparently they have all been permanently moved to the Detroit Zoo. That happened around the pandemic. They're going to stay there. There will be a couple of senior deer that will be left on the island. But this brings back a lot of like memories and stories for me over the years. I don't know about you, Eric.
Yeah, I mean, I remember them from when I lived in the city and down in Indian Village, and I'd just go through Belle Isle, and you'd just be driving around, and they just pop out of nowhere, and you're like, oh, oops, excuse me. And the first time you see it, and when it was interesting because when I had first moved to the city, I didn't expect that. And it's like all of a sudden, oh, this is interesting. It was pretty crazy. And just the Belle Isle was interesting in the mid 90s as it was, even before the deer. So, it's kind of weird and a little sad that they've decided to move them off.
I think the last wild deer was rounded up in 2003. And in the late 1990s, I remember I was really upset about something. I probably was broken up with or something like that. And I was driving around the island. I was frustrated. And I turned the corner around by the Scott Fountain, and there was just the herd of deer, hundreds of deer. And I got up to it, and I thought I'd turn around and go the wrong way and get out. They encircled me. And I ended up just sitting on the hood of my car for 2 hours feeding the deer. And that pretty much, made me realize that anything in wrongs or perceived wrongs that had happened really didn't matter in the world. So I thank the deer for my mental health to this day. All right. Well, that is it for today's show. Eric Tritko, thank you for stopping in for a minute. I appreciate you.
Oh, thanks for letting me jump in.
Devon O'Reilly, as always, good to talk to you on a Friday.
Great to talk to you, Jer, and glad to have you stop by, Eric.
Hey, thank you.
Reminder for our listeners, we are doing a ticket giveaway. dailydetroit.com/WinDCFC. You can get yourself a pair of season tickets to Keyworth. Exciting times. With that, I'm Jer Stays.
I'm Devon O'Reilly.
Take care of each other. We'll see you around Detroit.